Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. It's good to have you here. It is another beautiful Shabbat morning that we have been given, and a lovely opportunity to be together, to celebrate, to hear and study some Torah, and to remember as we at the same time celebrate Shabbat. So we'll start as we do in our Siddur on page 186. With the singing of, I'm looking around, with the singing of Moda Ani. We are remarkably all women today. So the choices are Moda if you're a man, or Moda if you are a woman. Moda Ani lefanecha. I offer thanks to you, ever living. You have restored my soul in mercy. How great is your trust. So we say Moda Ani lefanecha. Join us, please, on page 186.
Moda Ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shezarta b'nishmati behemna,
This morning, just before all of us convened here, some of us were in Torah study, and we were talking about the way we bless, and that typically we say a blessing and then we do the action. And so we just gave thanks for our soul being restored. We give thanks for each morning and for Shabbat morning. And now we give thanks quite literally for our bodies, for the systems that allow us to have moved from our homes. Perhaps if you're joining us from elsewhere, from your bedroom to the sofa, or your bedroom to the kitchen table, wherever you're joining us. And we give thanks for our bodies. So join me, please, as we turn to page 194, beginning with a bit of the Hebrew, and then we'll turn to the English. But really notice the words in the English as you pray them. We say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah uvoravo nikavim nikavim, chaluim chaluim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. Join me, please, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofecho basar umafli la'asot. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God, and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai v'ruach kol basar ish. We'll continue now. I hope you're warming up, because we need you to sing with us, to pray with us as we notice our daily miracles. Those begin on page 198. And we typically share them responsively with the cantor, but the cantor is going to join us in every verse, so she can lift her voice and ours alongside, but she's counting on us. So she's going to share the first set of daily miracles, and then we're going to respond with the second. But collectively, all of us are offering our gratitude for what might seem mundane, but is sacred and holy. Join us on page 198.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher l'sakbivina lechavhin ben yom uben layla.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokei achivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam atzir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokach haaretz hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaber.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish haromim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten la'ayef koach.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavir shna me'inayot nema me'achapayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzelem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani bat charim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. And preemptively, we will continue with the blessing for studying Torah, which some of us shared this morning, but always good to. We are meant to offer 100 blessings a day. So if we repeat one, I have to think that that's in good practice as well. So for those who shared the blessing for Torah study this morning, share it with us again on page 204, preemptively, as Marlene will be chanting Torah in a bit, and we'll be studying Torah with the cantor as well. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We seekers of God, how do we find you? In good deeds and in the study of Torah. And your search for us? You find us in the bending of the knee, in the rigor of study, in the honesty of commerce, through a good heart, through decency, in respect, true fellowship, companionship, and love, through truth and peace, in the no that is really no and the yes that is really yes. Baruch atah Adonai, hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Elu divarim she'en lahem shi'ur. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world while the principle remains in the world to come. They are, and let's share these together. Honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. We'll flip ahead forward to page 218 as we sing from Psalm 150, Hallelujah. So if you don't, I think I said this last week, if you don't have your Shabbat groove yet on, Psalm 150 is meant to get you there. So join us, please, in the singing of Psalm 150 as we give thanks and praise.
Hallelujah.
page 223, the middle of the page, as we continue. You shall always be praised, great and holy God, our sovereign in heaven and on earth. Songs of praise and psalms of adoration become you. Acknowledging your might and your dominion, yours are strength and sovereignty, sanctity, grandeur, and glory always. We offer our devotion, open our hearts in acclamation. Baruch atah Adonai, El Melech Gadol Batishbachot, El HaHodaot, Adon HaNiflaot, Habocher B'Shirei Zimra, Melech Elchei HaOlamim.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה, בעלמדי ורחירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון, וחיי דרכו בית ישראל, בגלה, ובזמן קריב וימרו.
Amen.
יהי שמרה במבורך, לעולם ולעד מעלמיה, יתברך, יתברך, וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרמה, ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתעלה, שמי קדושה. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם בעלמה, וימרו.
Amen. Do we have a friend joining us on, do we have some, yes? Okay, so we have in fact a minyan, so we will invite you please to rise in body or in spirit for the Baruch, our call to worship on page 226. Creator of light and darkness, we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim. Uf tuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita. Malah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shabach ma'aseh yadecha. Ve'al me'arei or sheyasita yifa arucha sela. Or chadash al tzion ta'ir v'nizkechu lanu mehero la'oro. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hamerot. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said. And light blinded, we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries. Your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
And please be seated as we continue with the Ve'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אלוהים מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך וישריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים.
continue responsively on page 239. The eternal truth is that you alone are God and there is none else.
Righteousness of all nations rejoice in your welcome.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation
You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor, asks God. Praise to God Most High.
continue with the singing of Michamocha on page 240, so please join me.
We rise in body or in spirit for the tefillah on page 242.
Adonai sefata jiftahu fi tehillateh. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Hanara, Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tavim, Beganei Hakol, Vezoher Hazdeavot V'Imavot, V'Bigir Livnei B'neihem Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh Hakol, Atah Roch L'Hoshia, Morid Chatal, Mechakel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayeh Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Nofli V'Rofeh Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha B'Geburot, Umida Melach, Melech Mimit, Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'Ne'eman atah le'hayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. And page 248. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shemagdishim ba'oto b'shmei marom, Hakatuv Adonai Tzebaot, Melech haaretz kevodo. Adir adireno Adonai, Adonainu ma'adir, Shimcha b'haaretz. Baruch kevod Adonai, mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, v'avinu malkeinu, u'moshienu ve'u yashmienu berachamav, l'nei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion, ledor vador.
Hallelujah.
Ledor vador nagid god lecha, u'lenetzach netzachim gerashatcha nakdish, v'shivchocha Eloheinu mipina lo yamush le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. Page 250 is where we will continue as we elevate Shabbat. We, as best we can, infuse it with our delight and our joy, which I can see is just kind of bubbling just below the surface for you. So let it out. This is that moment. This is that moment. Join us, please, with your bodies, with your voices, with your movement, and with your neshama, with your soul.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ונפש, שבת ונפש, שבת ונפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We'll continue as we offer thanks. We know that on Shabbat it is for us to offer thanks, not to make requests. God rests, and so too do we rest, and we rest our desire to ask for anything, to make any requests of God. So we pause, and that is what this day is about. And we offer our thanks, O God, for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories, glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace born of friendship and love. We offer our thanks and blessing, O God. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Ratzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel, u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai she'odcha levadcha be'yira na'avod. Modim anachnu lach she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu ve'olam va'ed. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. So let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for the miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulachana el hodot.
Continue with the singing of Sim Shalom on the next page. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova ubracha.
Greatest peace, since all blessings are in it. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We take a few moments, each of us, for the prayers of our heart, some time in silence, in intentional silence, in reflection, in prayer, in meditation.
Try with me.
Page 371 is where we will continue with the Mishaberach, just ahead of our Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our service for the reading of the Torah, blessing those who are in need of strength and patience and courage and wellness, care and compassion as they are struggling. We will offer our prayers to those whose names are familiar to us and those who should be included in our prayers and perhaps whose names we do not yet know. As we say, Mishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel B'Leah Hu Yivarech Etecholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and give strength to those who are struggling. This morning we are holding in our prayers Shana Esther bat Ruchel, Sarah bat Abraham bat Sarah, Alan Skirker, Laura Braun, Stephen Brent, Rini Feingold, Irving Manis, Gabriel Berger, Brian Mansfield, Michael Shartok, Miriam Nemitz, Casey Zachman, Ali Goldsmith, Barbara Petro, Valerie Brownstein, Liz Steinberg, Stephen Brieger, Claire Cowing, Linda Champion, Allison Rohr Sekeli, Sarah Postelnik, Stanley Niskoda, Gwen Tucker, Dennis Linsner, Yoka Adar Stam, Jamie Rosenzweig, Robin Trimble, Jean Harris, Shana Pies, Gary Mazinski, Leslie Whitney, Yosef Ben Miriam, Fran Schoenfeld, Ian Leonard, Margot Cohen, Oliver Scott, Raymond Condon, and Jonathan Behrman. If there are others whom you would add to our list, please, as I look your way, would you share that name or those names with us? And from home? We say, may the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for wherever possible health to be restored and strength revived. May God send renewal of body and renewal of spirit as we join together in saying, Amen.
Amen. And please join me in singing of Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavatenu. Bless us in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We'll turn to words of strength, words that fit nicely together with the Mishaberach, where we ask for healing and wholeness. And then we turn to the strength, the complexity, and the age-old wisdom of our Torah. This is for us a parsha that Marlene is going to be chanting from this morning that is replete with many twists and turns and much for us to consider. We'll hear more about that in just a few moments. But in the beginning, as we turn to our Seder Kriyat HaTorah, we'll invite you please to turn to page 362. And as we prepare to remove the Torah from the ark, we'll ask you please to rise.
En kamaha Elohim Adonai, ben gemasecha malchutecha, malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor v'hador. Adonai melech, Adonai melech, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed, Adonai Moiten, Adonai Yivarech et Amo v'shalom, Acharamim, Eitiva v'rtzonecha et Zion, Tivnecha mot Yerushalayim, ki b'chalavat batachnu, Melech Elrom v'nisadon olamim, ki Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Lemo Yisrael, Bigdushato, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadol Adonai Tzin Rabbeinu Yadav Yalalai 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 Yalalai
Please be seated.
Good. Well, we invite Marlene. She's very anxious to come up.
Eager. We say eager.
Eager, that's right, Rabbi.
The good kind. The good kind of anxious is eager, right? Right. And as the cantor is opening and setting the Torah, you'll find the blessing for Torah study on page 368. Page 368 is for where you'll find the blessing just before Torah study. Marlene's going to be reading from Ki Tetzei, from Deuteronomy, the beginning of Deuteronomy, page 1322.
Yes.
Yes, page 1322 in your Chumashim, the other blue-bound book, the Torah commentary in front of you. The beginning of Ki Tetzei can be found chapter 21, verses 10 and following.
And because you're all here and we are so happy you're with us, it's an honor for you and for us that you recite the blessings. Baruch et Adonai Havara, Baruch Adonai Avraham Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch et Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Ki tetzei lemilchama al oivecha b'aretz. What? This isn't right. No, this is a different word. It's not the right word. Look. Different. No, it's different.
That's the one I sent it to you. Oh, here.
Aha.
My fault. A little glitch.
So close. Okay. Let's try this again. Amen. Ki tetzei lemilchama al oivecha untano Adonai Elohecha biyadecha v'shivta shivyo v'ra'ita b'shivya eshet yufatoa b'chashavtavo lekachta lecha le'esha v'heveta el toch beitecha v'gilcha et rosha v'ista et zaparneha.
Together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'toheinu.
Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yasher koach, yasher koach.
Strong voice.
And we will continue as we, Yasher kochech, beautiful, beautiful, as we prepare to replace the Torah in the Ark, just ahead of our Torah reading as well. We'll ask you please to turn to page 370, and to rise as we continue with V'zot HaTorah.
V'zot HaTorah asher shal Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael, page 374. It's 374 for Etz Chaim. Etz Chaim hi, lama chazikim ba, v'tomechecha, me'ushar deruchecha, dar v'lam, b'chol netivotecha, shalom, shalom, hashivinu Adonai, elecha v'nashava, chadesh yameinu kekedem.
And please be seated, please be seated. We'll continue. The cantor's going to lead us in some brief study of Kitei Tzei, of our parsha. She's handing out a text study for us to consider and for us to unpack a little bit more of the section that Marlene so beautifully just chanted.
Okay, and I will share the screen for people online. So the portion Kitetse means before, as you go in a battle. So could somebody read the summary, please? It's on your handout. It says Parsha Kitetse, and we need the microphone, please. Help. Thank you. Yes, you need it.
Shelley, for people at home, yeah. Why don't I read the beginning part, and then Shelley will ask you to read afterwards, just so we can get started. I'll read just the summary, and then Shelley can read afterwards, okay? Parshat Kitei Tzei contains a mixture of 72 commandments dealing with such diverse subjects as the treatment of captives, defiant children, lost animals, birds' nests, roof railings, divorce, rights of aliens, loans, vows, protection of works, parental guilt, charity for the poor, regulations for inheritance, and fair weights and measures. The portion concludes with a warning to remember how the Amalekites, whom we studied this morning, attacked the weary Israelites in the desert.
Thank you, Robert. So this Torah portion contains this famous saying, right? You must not remain indifferent. How many of you heard this saying? You must not remain indifferent. No? Yeah? Okay. So it comes from this Torah portion, right? So what do you think it means? Try to not look ahead, because there are some answers there. So just, use your imagination. What do you think it means? You must not remain indifferent. Get involved. Right. Use the mic, please.
The imaginary mic. Listen, learn, and get involved.
Good.
When you see something that's going on, you cannot stand by and allow it to happen. Something bad.
Help?
Yes.
Help someone? Okay. Anybody else? So let's see what our wise rabbis say about that. Anybody would like to read? Parshat Kitei Tzei contains 72 commandments. Right after the you must not remain indifferent.
Thank you. Well, okay. Among those are the obligations to return lost property and the responsibility.
Wait. Okay, go ahead.
To help those in need. Regarding lost property, the Torah commands us to return anything we find that belongs to another person, be it an ox, a sheep, a garment, anything that may have been lost. The Torah adds the warning, you must not remain indifferent. The Torah is also quite clear concerning the obligation to aid someone in need. Our responsibility to help others with their burden, if, for example, while traveling along a road, we come upon the fallen ox or donkey of a friend, the Torah says, do not ignore it. You must help him raise it. What obligations, however, do we have if the lost property belongs to an enemy or the animal in distress belongs to someone we dislike?
Okay, so let's just break it up, right? So the first thing is, if you see, somebody, a person, right, in need, you help. I mean, when you see donkey, this is not relevant to us. So how can we make it relevant to our life? If you see an ox or donkey in the road, would you help, right? Somebody, a stranger. Yeah, so what are your thoughts about it? Right, so this is help. This is what Shoshana said, to help somebody. And the other issue is returning lost property, right? Returning lost property. So this is the second issue here. So can you comment? Can you comment on those two, Marlene?
Well, to me, the issue that's, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The issue that's most challenging is if the lost property belongs to someone you don't like.
Right, we didn't get there yet.
Oh, I thought you just read it.
No, it's okay. Keep going. We just
Oh,
trying
never mind.
to. It's okay. We're trying to focus on somebody like who we don't know, or a stranger, or we know, a neighbor, lost property. Like what's their obligations, and then we'll go to somebody who we dislike. That's more challenging.
As far as the just returning lost property of a stranger, probably just, like, you have to make an effort. Like, I actually found someone's phone on the ground a few months ago. So their email was on the lock screen, so I emailed them and, did my best to get in touch with them. And if they hadn't gotten back to me, I was going to hand it in a police station. I wasn't going to, try to Facebook stalk them and figure out where they lived and drop it off. That would actually be kind of creepy. But the reasonable steps of try to contact them if I can figure out how, drop it off at a safe location, don't just leave it lying on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's relevant to our life.
Can I ask, how many times have you gone grocery shopping and walked out to unload your groceries into your car and accidentally found something in the cart for which you were not charged? You forgot to put it up on the conveyor belt, you forgot to do the self-checkout, right? And you walk out and you think, is that returning lost property to someone whom you do not know, and what do you do? I leave that as a rhetorical because I suspect many of us have been in that spot before, right?
Right.
And what are our choices, right? Whether it's known or unknown. So another choice,
Yes, right.
another place in this text for us to think about how it lives, right?
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Not everybody goes back and returns, right? So Marlene?
Well, and I think in that example, one thing that comes up for us in modern times anyway is the tendency to want to make a distinction between an individual and a corporation, for example, and say, oh, they won't miss it. And so that's something we have to think about.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So anybody, please?
Well, in reading all this, maybe the bottom line is the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated, and not spend a lot of time with internal debate. How would you want somebody to treat you?
You're right
Period.
on the point, because some of the Torah scholars point out when they study this Torah portion, they said, treat your neighbor as yourself. And that's exactly what you said. Yes. Anybody else on this issue, returning the property to somebody you don't like? Somebody you like or, don't know, not dislike.
I don't know if this is going to come up in the discussion, but I had a similar thing with finding somebody's cell phone and going to all these lengths. And an issue that came up that I had to make peace with is when you do all this and it's not appreciated at all, then you have to say, okay, well, I did it because it was the right thing to do, not for appreciation. I think that's an interesting aspect of all this property stuff, too.
Yes. Well, the rabbis also said that people who return, they should not be seeking for reward. You know, that's what rabbis say. You know, people who return the lost property, those people should not be seeking for reward. It should be a mitzvah to return lost property. So let's say Torah, mentions so much about you see the fallen ox or donkey on the road, and some people will just ride by and not help the animal because it's not their property. How does it relate to us? If we drive, right, in this country, we drive, and if you see somebody on the road, would you stop and give a ride to people? Probably not, right? You have? Okay, Shelley?
Yes, I saw some people standing by the side of the road. Their car was broken down, and apparently they hadn't called anyone. And so I stopped my car and I said, "Do you need a ride to someplace in order to have this fixed?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, hop in." And I took them to a garage.
Wow, you brave woman.
No, I just believe that people are basically good, and when you see something, do something.
So you saw somebody whose car was broken?
Yeah.
Okay, so this relates to us, like broken car,
Yeah.
fallen donkey, right? Similar. Where I come from, Ukraine, we always give a ride to somebody who was on the road. Like in Israel, I don't know about Canada, like in European countries, it's normal. But I think in America, it's not very common. Maybe I'm mistaken. What's the comments about that?
It used to be common. I remember during World War II, which I'm old enough to remember, there were soldiers hitchhiking. People would stop and pick them up, and my father would do that. But things have become more dangerous, and I think people are more reluctant to do that these days.
Yeah. Anybody else on that? Picking up people? Shoshana?
I don't know, like you said, where it's gotten less common these days, definitely. I think my parents would probably be concerned if I picked up a stranger. If I was driving alone, they'd probably, tell me that I shouldn't have done that, that I should have called someone for them, but not taken them in the car alone with me. So I say my response would be that you have to take reasonable steps. Definitely, you have to. But going above and beyond, if I see someone broken down on the side of the highway, usually I won't stop because I'm going at 60 miles an hour. I can't pull over fast enough safely to give them help, but I can, call 911 and say, "Hey, there's a car broken down here. Can you send someone to help?"
Yeah, that's...
I guess actually I would relate it to the first rule of first aid, which I took a course in, which is don't become another victim. Right? You don't attempt to help someone put yourself in distress because now there's just two people who need help and you've actually made the situation worse.
Good, very good thoughts. And it's different when, you say, you live in a neighborhood, right? And my son just fell from the bike, all the neighbors came out and started to help. So that's different, right?
And I think this points out that there's a big aspect of this has to do with gender, how safe women are as opposed to men, not exclusively, and that was my struggle with my part of the parsha about treatment of women and autonomy of women and safety of women. So I think it comes up in this discussion also.
So very good comments. So let's move to number 1. It says, for example, rabbinical interpreters. You see that? Just can you read this text and then see what it says? It says for number 1. Everybody see number 1? Okay. Shoshana, thank you.
For example, rabbinic interpreters tell of a man who, passing the door of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, accidentally left some of his hens. We must not eat their eggs, Rabbi Hanina told his family. However, the eggs and hens quickly multiplied, and there was no place to keep them. So Rabbi Hanina sold them and purchased goats. Sometime later, the man who had accidentally left his hens returned, asking about them. Rabbi Hanina inquired if he had some identification to prove his ownership. He did. Rabbi Hanina immediately gave him the goats.
Okay, so this touches upon to not make a profit, right? When somebody lost something, like money, can invest and you can make a profit. So what does it tell you? Like, how is it relevant to us, to our life? Like, how could somebody make a profit? You have to have like a large sum of money, I guess, and then somebody comes back later and reclaim it. How can you make a profit?
Can I give it for instance?
Yes.
Maybe in modern times, since we don't have donkeys, and most of us, I don't think, have donkeys and hens, but some of us have fruit trees, right? Some of us have fruit trees in our yards, and there's a debate in the Talmud that says if you have a fruit tree in your yard and a branch grows into a neighbor's yard, and the fruit from that tree grows into your neighbor's yard, maybe you have this at home, right? Could your neighbor pick those apples and make them into fill in the blank, and then sell them for a profit? Right? That might be the corollary for us. What do you think? Could that be?
Yes.
Right? Could that work? Right? It's your, the apples are growing on your property, right? Would it be kosher, little k, for you to turn a profit off of the fruit that's growing in your yard?
Shoshana?
Well, I think in that case, we're saying like the root of the tree is in not your yard, but the branch overhangs your yard. I'd say your neighbor is the one putting in all the effort to make the tree and the fruit grow, right? They're the one watering it and presumably pruning the branches, although apparently not that one, and making sure it's fertilized and doesn't have insects. So unless you're contributing like that, I would say that it's not yours, and therefore you shouldn't be making a profit off it.
On the other hand,
Like the rabbis in the Talmud.
on the other hand, yes. On the other hand, the person the neighbor who picked up the apples and did something with them to make a profit for it, put effort into that action. So that the apples were, but that product, maybe it was applesauce that was sold at the farmer's market. So that applesauce, that was from the work of the neighbor who did not own the tree. So in that case, they added value, and therefore they're entitled to the profit. Now, they might want to share the profit with the person whose property the tree is on, but they wouldn't have to give them the whole amount.
Well, good thoughts.
I think they should gather the apples and return them to the owner. It was an accident, and it happens. And the owner didn't cut off that, it doesn't seem that the owner cut off the branch. So it's still, the apples are his. So gather them up or give him a call and say, I've got all these apples. How do you feel about my return? Do you want me to return them, or may I keep them? So it's just a question.
Okay. I'm just moving because sun.
We should all go to law school. A, if the apples were picked by the neighbor from that branch, they should go back to the owner. If the apples fell, it was an act of God and nature. If the person who planted the tree was that concerned of where those apples would go, they would have done something to prevent that branch from growing onto the neighbor's territory. So, that's my thought.
It also depends on the relationship between two neighbors, right?
Right, and I think there's some reciprocity. For example, if the branch over the fence destroyed something, like it shaded the beautiful flowers and they died, would that neighbor then take the responsibility? So, and I have this with some of my neighbors. Anyway, so yeah, it does. I think it does depend on the relationship, but two, is there going to be some reciprocity? And I also want to say about the goat that.
Okay.
He didn't have any more room for the hen, so it was like, it was very wise to do. I don't know, that doesn't fit into this, but I just wanted to say that about the goat.
So I just want to mention something, and then Shoshana. So yes, apples, like it's a great example. So when I was growing up in Ukraine, you go to the store, like during the Soviet era, you go to the produce store, like there is no food. Like you have to stay in line for bread, for eggs, for meat, or you don't get good meat. So people who work in the factories, like milk factory, meat factory, used to steal, bring home and sell it to their friends or whatever neighbors that they can trust that wouldn't turn them in. So it was done everywhere. So this is a big time, making profit, right? And stealing. So and we bought too from people, because there was nothing in the store. So we bought from people. Did we make a mistake?
I think there's an issue of survival, and, I don't know.
Yeah.
The whole thing, stealing a loaf of bread because your children are starving, it's very complicated, I think.
Susanna?
I mean, I think to your point that the circumstances do matter a bit, right? If the neighbor who's having apples fall into their yard, like I would say picking them, I would count that personally as theft. But yeah, if they're desperate and they need food or they need money for other things, you have enough food but you don't have medicine, whatever it may be, then you should treat them more kindly. Although in this instance, it's optimal to just go ask the neighbor, can I have your apples to sell, instead of just taking them. But yeah, circumstances, I think, they affect things. It matters.
Thank you. Do we want to read the next text, number 2? It's running out. Just read this next text, and then we're going to wrap up. Number 2, Nachmanides. Anybody? Marlene?
Nachmanides makes it clear that the mitzvah of returning lost property supersedes any inconvenience to the finder. The finder is obligated to announce the discovery of the lost apple item so that others will know he possesses it, and the loser's anxiety will be shortened. Carrying out the mitzvah of restoring lost property applies to friends and strangers and even enemies. If one encounters a person whose property is in danger, a donkey who has fallen while carrying a heavy load, a runaway animal, or a broken vehicle, one's ethical responsibility is to help save the property. This applies also to the property of an enemy. Nachmanides puts it this way: assist others, remember the bond of humanity between you, and forget the hatred.
Well, this is more complicated, right? How do you treat the person that you don't like? Shoshana?
I do like this, where it does apply to the enemies, because otherwise, there are people I don't like. There are people I disapprove of. But you get into the danger of, necessarily your own judgment isn't necessarily correct or the be-all, end-all. It's possible for reasonable people to disagree and neither one to be wrong. And so, yeah, I believe unless unless circumstances come into account and you're going to be helping them hurt somebody else by doing this. I would say that, personally, I'd say that supersedes the helping other people because you're causing net worse things. But yeah, I think because, again, you'd want your enemies to do this for you. So they'd be, reasonable enemies, I guess.
I see it as an opportunity. Many times if you dislike someone, it's, and you are brought together and you talk with that person that you dislike, you find out that you have many things in common and that you, in many cases, can relate to things. And so it's an opportunity. If it's an enemy, that's a little more testy. I think you have to test the waters, maybe first by sending a communication and seeing if there's, again, an opportunity to, excuse me, an opportunity to
Reconcile.
yeah, I think so. It doesn't have to be a negative. Yeah. It's like if countries will sit down and not make war anymore,
Your mouth.
Right. Okay, so I guess maybe two more comments, and then we'll have to wrap up. Thank you.
It's easy to have a conversation about apple time to go. However, as Rochelle referred to, we pay a lot of money to a lot of lawyers, to a lot of diplomats, to a lot of presidents and emirs and everybody else, and it doesn't seem that any of these lessons are applicable either in the United States or in the world at large at this current moment in history. So therefore, maybe we should all go back to kindergarten and start all over again from the sandbox to where they end up, because this doesn't seem to be working in the practical world, unfortunately.
Right, so the mic is not working. We can just keep talking. We almost finish up.
If the, I don't know, that's,
Yes, okay.
in the extreme, I think would be, it's more difficult.
Yes, it's complicated.
Oh, what I was saying was, I really love the last two comments. The situation where it'd be very difficult and conflictual for me would be if the enemy were someone who were so despicable and morally corrupt, for example, murder, that it would put it in a different realm for me, and that would be difficult because I would be wanting to do the things.
Okay, so we'll just last comment, and then we'll go to Elena.
All right, thank you. I would just say, based on those last three, I think helping an enemy would let us lead by example, right? We could help be the ones to turn the tide. And you're right, and connect and make fewer people our enemies. And just in response to what you were saying, if someone's really, really nasty person, we can disagree, but I think it would be still worth reaching out and trying to help them, turn their life around. Unless, again, don't help someone murder someone. Don't give them a weapon so they can go kill someone. But if it's not that, if it's helping them to the grocery store or something, I don't know, giving them their phone back, we might be able to help turn them around, and it's not our job to punish them for what they did. Thankfully, we've got justices and a justice system and God
Right.
and whatnot. All right.
Well, thank you. Well, we can continue discussing it at the ONIG, and so come back every Saturday, and we always have thoughtful discussions on the different subjects. So thank you for your input. It was great.
Such an important discussion. Thank you. Thank you. It's, thank you for bringing it to us and so rich in the commentaries. Lift up this ancient text to us, right? We can take it from the donkeys and the goats and look at it in that context and think, okay, that's what they were wrestling with then. And look at it in a contemporary context as well and think, well, what am I supposed to do with that now, right? And Linda, we can look on a global level and see people aren't living it, right? People aren't living it. And then we can see in places where they are and the importance of trying to figure out how this text is applicable to contemporary times for us individually, for us communally, for us nationally, and then for us globally, right? It's the only way that our texts still have relevance and meaning and importance if we study them, if we dig deeper and think, okay, so what, right? It's what we ask bar and bat mitzvah children, right, students. So what? You're studying this text? Why does it matter now? What are we meant to learn from it? So thank you. We had our own academy of Talmudic scholars right here who gave us the back and forth and peel back the layers of what the surface of the text teaches about not remaining indifferent. So Cantor, thank you for illuminating this section of Deuteronomy for us, and agreed. Come back. Let's study some more. We turn now, though, to our concluding prayers, the Aleinu, which can be found on page 586, in which we conclude for now, but not ultimately, and know that the task is Aleinu, is upon us. Page 586, and we'll ask you please to rise. So too do we connect ourselves to our ancient tradition when we pause, even at a joyous time on Shabbat, when we delight in the pause, to think of those loved ones whom death has perhaps recently taken from us, or for those we are mourning because they died at this season in years past, and this marks an anniversary of passing. This particular Shabbat, we are mourning the loss of Queen Elizabeth II, and so too are we mourning the loss of Samuel Kaplan, father of Janice States. This marks a yahrzeit, an anniversary of passing for Louis Brenner, Liza Birdman, Sidney I. Esterson, Harry Goldsmith, Carol Goldstein, Sylvia Yetkowitz-Gordon, David Green, Norma Greenspan, Charles Grodensky, Charles Hagan, Michael Hilditch, Jacob Kagan, Sidney Kastner, Max Katzowitz, Yakov Khrushchev, Estelle Lazaroff, Milton Lazaroff, Sylvia Levinson, Rose Lisson, Grigory Novozenitz, Shirley Ornstein, Milton Rapkin, Isidore Rapkin, Jeanette Rapkin, Barney Rapp, Alex Rappaport, Martin Rosenzweig, Julia Sack, Albert Winston Schifrin, Eric Schafrier, Eliza Stark, Samuel Weinstein, Francis Wertheimer, and Dorothy Wolf. If there are other names that should be added to either list, or names that are better spoken aloud by you, please, as I look your way, would you share that name or those names? And at home? We say Zichronam Levrcha. May each of their memories be for a blessing as we turn to page 598 to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yamechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudashav b'richu. Le'ila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all who are mourning, all who are remembering, all Israel, as we join together in saying, Amen. Amen. Please be seated. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you to Marlene for lifting up Torah for us and lifting the words off of the scroll and into our hearts and into our mind. Thank you to Cantor Braun for leading us in a rich discussion and to all of you for your participation as well. We are going to share some brief announcements, make Motzi, Kiddush and Motzi, and close with our song, with our closing song. I'm looking around, I'm thinking first day of religious school tomorrow is not so thrilling for all of you, but perhaps for those who are joining us from home, I know that we do, yes, that we have somebody joining us from home who's got somebody returning to school tomorrow. And the Torah Chanting Club is also getting started again, so you can follow in Marlene's footsteps and chant Torah as well. Join us next week at 6 o'clock for services. We have our ASL interpreter joining us that evening as well. And then next Saturday morning, we'll start again with Torah study. We're in the book of Exodus. We don't follow the Parsha. We're in the book of Exodus, chapter 18, and then services again on Saturday morning. And then next Saturday night, it means the High Holy Days are fast approaching. Join us as we turn to Slichot, our prayers and our pleas for change in this year ahead, where we change the Torah mantles to white, and where we change our hearts at the same time. We continue the gradual changing of our hearts as we move towards these sacred days. We'll begin Slichot next Saturday evening at 7:30 with an opportunity for the program, our Paint and Sip, where you'll have the opportunity to really open up your artistic capabilities and abilities and senses if you have them, your yearnings to be artistic if you're not, and we've got some guides, some guides and some prompts to really open up that part of our spirit and delve into the High Holy Days using all of our senses. And then we'll have a brief Slichot service at 8:30. So the Paint and Sip and the program is at 7:30, and then the service at 8:30. Please just register online so we know to expect you. And then next Sunday, the 18th, we have our celebration. We have religious school, and we have our celebration of Mr. Adar, who retired after 17 years at 11:30. Please join us in the sanctuary for that as well. A couple of other dates to write down as well, or to note. September 19th, that next week and the beginning of the week is busy. Social Action has their next program called How Iniquities and Injustices in the Rochester Community Undermine Democracy. It will be a spectacular gathering here at Temple at 7 p.m. with Simeon Bannister and Jennifer Leonard. So please, if you have the opportunity to join us, please do that as well. And also to know that registration is open for our Israel trip, and we hope that you'll join us. Rabbi Katz and I are taking the Israel trip that's been delayed for 2 years at the end of February and beginning of March, and you can register online for that as well. And then in terms of not remaining indifferent and our teaching from today, so many places, any number of places, I say this each week, but it bears repeating each week, that need your assistance, whether that is your time, your energy, your donation of goods, your financial contribution, your signature. Please be sure to make this text a livable one by not remaining indifferent, identifying the places that you can affect some change and do what is just and right, and contribute in that way as well. If it is your custom, yes, Marlene. Please. Yes, thank you. The Elul discussion on Tuesday evening on Zoom, one of two of them, right? You'll find that information.
7 p.m.
Yes, thank you for reminding us. You'll find that information in snippets as well. There will be, yes, and the website, thank you. An informal discussion as we continue to move through the month of Elul that Marlene brings to our attention. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please join us. If it's your custom to rise for Kiddush, please do so. We'll make Kiddush and then Motzi and share our closing song.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei beri hagafen.
Please be seated.
And together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Amen, amen.
So the closing song is Adon Olam.
Slice, dice, and sing. It is nowhere in your seminary training, right?
Page 625. There are 5 verses. We don't have to sing all of them. And so please join me. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzirei nivra letnasa v'chesakol azai melech shemo nitra v'acharei gihot hakol levado yimlach enora v'hu haya v'hu hove v'hu yeh b'tifara v'hu yefat v'ein sheni להמשיך לו להגבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית בלא העוז והמשרה.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Please join us. We'll bring the challah in. Join us for a quick nash in the social hall and an opportunity to greet one another. Shabbat